Hi again, everyone. Liz Jones. You will meet the rest of our portions of our team as we go through this workshop today. So I want to welcome everyone inside of KRESA, inside of Kalamazoo County, as well as outside of Kalamazoo County. We have a few people joining us from out of the area, and a shout out to Kelly Higgins. Kelly is actually a relative of mine, so you must have seen something that I shared on one of our Facebook pages. So I'm just going to do a little special shout out that way to Kelly. I'm glad that you are here with us today. So this is the next in our PD series that we have been offering throughout this year from our career awareness and exploration team. The others that are coming up still throughout the rest of the 2023 school year, you can always view on the Kalamazoo RESA website, kresa.org, and sign up for those and register as well. Each one can be viewed independently, and you can also string them together and receive overall sketches for each and every one of them, and all of them as a total. So just want to go through a couple of quick meeting norms. Most are probably very familiar to you. I'll have Joan move to the next slide in regards to that. So we are asking that everyone please stay fully present with us with your camera on if possible throughout the workshop. Of course, we understand life happens, and you might need to turn that video off for a second, take a bio break, calm a child or let a dog out, whatever might be happening in your world at the time. But staying with us and staying present, engaging with that open mind. Use our little ask, affirmations, surprises, and keepers notes if you have a piece of paper beside you and want to use the ask acronym for that. And also, we want this to be informative for all of you, and so please use the chat at any time to ask for questions or clarifications, or even comment on some things that you're doing that others might be able to learn from. And let's just have some fun. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a team of us here at Kalamazoo RESA. There are 6 career awareness and exploration consultants, and our director, Jason Luke, right there in the middle. You know, whether it's the thorn among roses or the roses among thorns, we haven't quite, figured that out yet over time. But yes, we all have a pretty good time. The 7 of us together. We are divided by different school districts as well as specialty areas. And so under each of our names, you will see the different schools that we support mainly. So we're going to be covering quite a number of different things today. We have a pretty full agenda for the hour and a half that we're going to be together. Initially, we want to just do kind of this EDP, a knowledge check. Like, what do you know? What do you want to know? What can we learn from each other? Also, we're going to talk a little bit about planning and well-being and how planning has an impact on well-being. Going to go over some of the legislation in regards to the Michigan Department of Education EDP legislation and documentation for that. Show some of the alignments that we're doing in regards to the Xello platform that we support for all of our school districts. Look a little bit at structured reflection, an important piece that we're working with and realizing, especially with our students, in terms of their own self-reflection in regard to the information that they're learning about themselves and the options ahead of them, and some of that goal planning, along with the talent portfolio, which is also part of the legislation, and then looking at some of the student voices, some of the information that we've heard back from our kids as we go through the EDP process with them. We have a few objectives for today. At the end, we're hoping that we have achieved these and you're feeling comfortable with what we've today. And if not, or if there's clarifications or additional resources that you would like to have from our team, again, use that chat or reach out to any one of us. Our emails and things will be at the end of the presentation. And we will also be sending out this recording as well as providing a link to the copies of the slides so that you'll have those as well and have the live links within them. So as I mentioned before, yep, we're going to look at the Michigan Educational Development Plan, look at the elements of that, explore its alignment in terms of SEL and MyKIP, the Michigan Continuous Improvement Process, identify Michigan EDP, the required elements, and in Xello, like where we're seeing that alignment because of that's the system that we're using. Show how to engage students in creating a meaningful EDP for them. We know, of course, that it's a state mandate. It's kind of that unfunded mandate. Sometimes it has a little bit of a negative connotation, but really there's a meaningfulness for our kids. And so we want to show how it can become that meaningful tool for our students. And then really how the EDP and the talent portfolio work together to provide that very empowering document for kids as they move forward in their career and education journey. So really, what is an educational development plan? Many of you have probably seen this in the legislation perhaps, or read it in other places, but from Michigan Department of Education and the legislation, a living document developed by students to identify career goals, related action plans, in alignment with their changing interests and abilities. Can be a little confusing. Might be somewhat vague, especially for students to understand, and even some of our teaching staff and our schools. So we took a stab at a little friendlier version, mainly for students, because really it's theirs. This is something that they are creating. So looking at it as an ongoing and changing document. So kids know that it's not set in stone. It is something that changes over time with them as they have new experiences, new growth and development. So an ongoing and changing document a student creates that lists their potential careers of interest, goals, and steps towards success. So we'd like to take a minute and hear from you. We want this to be interactive. So we'd like to ask you to first reflect on these two statements or these two questions. What do you want to know about today's topic? Or what do you know? Sorry, what do you know about today's topic and what do you want to know? And just think about that for a second. Type your answer in the chat, but don't press enter yet. We're going to do what we hope is a fun waterfall activity where we'll press enter all at once and all of us will be able to see everyone's information, everyone's comments in the chats all at once. And then we can kind of do a little bit of a share in regards to what we're seeing in the chat. So take a minute and do some reflection. Think about those questions, then type your answer in the chat. And in about 30 seconds, I'm going to ask you to press enter. And I need to find my chat. See, we've got some happening already. So now before I have you press enter, I'm just going to do a quick reminder for those of you that might have come on just a little bit late after I said this before, but there is the sketchy application form at the top or the registration form. So make sure that you've got that set up if you're looking for sketches for this. So all right, so no problem there, Bo. Enter is an auto reflex of mine too. So I get you. Sometimes my team knows I'm always kind of like sending something quick before I mean to. So, all right, everyone, go ahead and press chat and let's see, or I'm sorry, press enter and we'll see what comes up. And I'm going to take a minute too to scroll up and down the chat to see what's being said. Yeah, what's it supposed to accomplish? Good question. Good wondering. Updates and changes. What are the updates and changes? How to incorporate SEL. They're good. Yes, tracking. We hope that you learned some things too, Mrs. Winkle. We're here for that. Nice, Grace. To better support plans as a healthcare professional. Looking to make it better at your school. Nice. Making them more meaningful. Thank you, Jason, for that plug. That's what we're here for. How to make them better and more useful. Yeah. How does it benefit all, especially students that don't have that clear path? How to make it simpler for kids, especially those with higher needs. All right, thank you, everyone. Hopefully throughout today, we're going to be able to get to some of those pieces and answer some of that information. I also want to tell you a little trick that I've learned in using Zoom. You may or may not know about it, but in the 3 dots at the bottom of your chat screen, when you click on that, you can save chat. So you can save the chat as long as you're logged in. It'll save the entire chat for the entire time. Or if you happen to lose the link and have to log back in, you'll lose you'll lose that portion that might have happened while you were offline. But saving the chat sometimes is helpful. Just wanted to give you that little hint. So thank you, everyone, for putting comments in. And I think that we will definitely address some of those pieces as we go through today.
I'm jumping in.
About plan.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks for the handy tech tip. I didn't actually know that about the 3 dots, so I already learned something new today. Hi, everyone. I'm Jocelyn Wright Newman. I'm another career development consultant on the CAE team, and it's fantastic to be with you this evening. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about the value of planning overall. We know EDPs are a requirement. Liz mentioned the legislation, but also you're here at 4 o'clock on a rainy January Tuesday, probably because you actually see a lot of value in the planning process. So we're going to kind of just quickly reaffirm that this is more than just a requirement, that this is something that has value for students and talk about a couple of reasons why. I think this slide mostly speaks to how helping students plan accomplishes a lot of goals, but a lot of it has to do with helping students know why they're there in that building every day. And building a culture of students having goals and knowing what they're working towards can create healthier school climates. It can lower discipline, it can raise attendance rates. So it goes beyond just a student knowing what their graduation goal is. It has to do with helping the whole educational experience have deeper meaning and helping students make decisions in a way that connects to what they really want for their lives as opposed to them being arbitrary. So I think, again, that last quote there, especially understanding the relationship between academics and career planning. We know there's a whole host of things that are less likely to happen, dropping out, disciplinary issues, but there's also a whole host of things that are hopefully more likely to happen, like the classes they're taking actually, them being engaged in those educational opportunities because they're meaningful for them. And we can move forward to the next slide. So the other piece that our team has been spending some time on this year is looking at the relationship between planning and student well-being. And there's a lot of research, because to me that was sort of intuitive, it makes sense, but I actually hadn't ever really delved into, is there research to back that up? And there actually is, that connects future-oriented thinking with increased student well-being. And well-being can be defined whole lots of ways, but we can probably agree that it's all good, and that we know our students need support with their well-being. And so when we think about all the different initiatives and programming and curriculum that's directed towards student health, student well-being, we don't always think about educational development planning and the work of career development in that realm of activities. But in reality, the research shows that if we can help our students become better at being future-oriented and about thinking about their future in a healthy, positive way, we're actually going to help their overall well-being in addition to helping them meet their goals. And so that I think that brings additional meaning to this work, that it isn't just about a career goal or graduation goal. Those things are important, but it's also about helping students with a life skill that supports their mental health and their well-being. And it also connects to those social emotional learning skills. And I think Erin mentioned wanting to think more about how this process is related to SEL. When we think about the SEL components of self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, I think it's clear to see that pieces of the EDP process directly support student growth in those areas. And we'll kind of delve a little bit more into how Xello, the system that we work with, can do that. But I think it's important to just recognize that that's all part of this planning process. All right, so we're going to give you a chance to think about your experiences with students. So for just a moment, we want you to think about a time that you worked with a student on planning, and that can be in a classroom setting, it can be in a one-on-one setting, it can be with your own children, it can be anywhere. Think about a time that you helped a student with the skill, learning the skill of planning in some way. We were presenting to a group of school counselors last month, and as expected, we got the consensus from them that students don't come to us with a ton of planning skills. So my guess is you have been working with students to build these skills because they don't walk in the door already knowing how to make plans. So think about a time you did that with a student. What impact did you see as a result of them learning a planning skill? What was the impact, whether it's well-being related, whether it's academic related, whether it's social emotional? What impact did you see in that student from the work you did in helping them plan? If you want to go ahead and enter a response in the chat and share that, that would be great. Ooh, relief is such a great word. Ownership. Stress levels went down when having a plan. Increase in attendance and confidence in decision-making skills. Increase in confidence. And I don't know about you, but last time I was in a middle school or high school, I think this is a group that needs help with confidence. And so I think that alone is a reason to support planning. Correct classes chosen. So just knowing that they're making decisions that align, that get them where they want to be. Awesome. So we can kind of, I think, see that there are lots of positive outcomes from working with students on planning, and specifically career planning, future planning, making that a priority, dedicating time and energy to the process of helping students learn to plan. And I think the other piece that I can certainly relate to in thinking about my own life, and maybe you can as well, is that you don't just plan once, you don't just plan in middle school and high school. You graduate from high school and it's just the beginning of chances to plan and make plans and change plans and undo plans and come up with new plans. And so I think in the end, for me, a lot of times this thinking about EDPs and teaching students the purpose of having a really meaningful plan isn't so much about the end goal of the plan. It's about helping students understand the way that planning works, how to build healthy plans for themselves, knowing that they're going to need to come back to this skill again and again and again in a lifetime. And that I know my career journey has been a little bit like this river that you see here through the mountains. It's taken some turns. I certainly didn't end up where I thought I would end up, and I'm certainly not done yet, but I'm not now where I thought I would be, but it's good. That's a good thing. And being able to pivot and to make adjustments was a real good coping skill, a real good support skill. And I think part of that was the fact that I learned to plan from the beginning. And then this is just kind of saying a little bit of the same thing. You know, we won't kind of get into the data here, but we know that our students are going to have changes in their lives. The work world is going to change. I'm sure that you've discussed amongst yourselves the idea that they're going to be doing jobs that don't have a title yet, that sometimes even talking about job titles feels a little bit arbitrary because we know that the future is going to be different. And so, you know, that's where thinking about that, what problems do I want to solve perspective helps us maybe become more adaptive, but also knowing that we want to help students know that changing careers or changing positions isn't a failure, that's a success. As you learn about yourself, as you get experience, as you make connections, you're able to maneuver in a way that helps you better use your talents and skills, better solve the problems in your community, and kind of work more towards things that feel meaningful to you. So this planning process, coming back around to it, we want to normalize that's something that we hope students are going to have a need for as they move forward in their careers.
Okay, thank you, Jocelyn, for that little bit in terms of the impact of planning on the well-being of our students and people in general. And each of us on the team, probably several of you, as well as others, have witnessed the anxiety and stress level of our young adult children nearing graduation, where they're not sure which one thing to choose. And it's really not anymore about the one thing. It's where is it you want to start? What are your initial next steps? And then knowing that, yep, it's going to weave and bob and change. And I know Jocelyn said she wasn't done yet, but you know, we think she's going to be part of our team forever, right? So, but yes, for our young people to understand, it's a journey. It's just things are just getting started for them, and that within the planning process and the career planning process, to know that as those different opportunities present themselves, they'll know a step-by-step process to take some time to reflect on self, look at what the options are, and then make those informed decisions. So in terms of information and informed decisions, we wanted to do our due diligence in regards to the EDP for the document, of course, that the legislation created or put out. And so we took time to review these different resources, the EDP fundamentals put out by Career and Technical Education Department, pupil accounting, the personal curriculum pieces, within the special education realm. Many of these documents support the fact that an EDP is the base or the foundational document for the student planning forward and going into their next steps, even with a personal curriculum aligned to the EDP, some of their transitional pieces for special education aligned to the EDP, pupil accounting in regards to the number of virtual classes. There needs to be an EDP in place to show if a student has more than 2 virtual classes. And we all know about that coming off of the pandemic in the last couple of years. And so we did, like I said earlier, do our due diligence in terms of reviewing these documents, especially the Michigan Career Development Model. And on the next slide, I want to show you that the Michigan Career Development Model actually was created in 2018. The legislation actually went through an update in 2018. And from that update, the Michigan Career Development Model was created. It's actually in revision right now and is planned to, the new update is planned to be released, I believe, this coming November, 2023 November. But for right now, this is the current document that we have to work with. And as you can see, there's an appendix. The Appendix A talks about the fact that in 2019-2020 school year, then districts need to start incorporating career development education per grade level, K-12. And so it goes a little bit further than just the EDP within the grades 7 through 12, and sort of brings it into a larger perspective or a broader perspective in terms of our entire K-12 system. It also kind of defined and brought in the word talent for talent portfolio. In the previous legislation, it was more portfolio. And so in the update, it really speaks a little bit more to the EDP and talent portfolio. So we want to kind of talk a little bit about that as we go forward. And both of these on this on that slide, both of those sections are linked, so you can click on those when you get to the slides. And that, so for the EDP, these are, when you look through the Michigan Career Development Model and other resources, these are the essential elements. This is what the legislation as well as MDE has identified as the key areas of what should make up an educational development plan. So I'm wondering, just go ahead and unmute for a minute after you kind of look through the list. Just tell all of us where or how you might see these things occurring in the classroom. What are ways that these might be happening in an instructor's classroom that shows the support of an EDP doing some of that educational development planning? What are some of the ways that might be happening? Don't be shy.
Okay, so at the high school level, can you guys hear me? Yep, there we go. Bunch of
Thank
smiles.
you. Thank
You're
you.
like, all right, someone said something. All right, here we got the heads nodding. At the high school level, I know in our marketing and personal finance classes, Mr. Halloween, I've seen and heard his lesson plans revolving around career exploration. So they look into what's doing really well in the field, that kids can explore now, what the hot 50 jobs are, and we kind of introduce that concept to kids too, what the growing fields are. So career goals and awareness of projected job openings. So I hit 2 bullet points, y'all get the rest.
Very nice.
Very nice.
And it's true, those conversations can happen anywhere, inside a classroom, in an office setting, in the hallway, at lunch. Where else? Where else might some of this be happening in classrooms? Or how you could see it happening in classrooms?
I haven't seen it for a while, but there was a poster that was floating around in math classes. How am I going to use that? Or this, math, and it showed different careers that use math. And we also, I know Kristen Garceau created one with concepts that you use in math, like slope, for example. And so just those were words that are concepts that people use in industry that kind of connect a math class to what people do in industry. So, which one am I checking off here? Awareness, no, you got that one. Career assessment, highlights, I don't know. So just anyways, just trying to make those connections as a classroom teacher. I think if you can make any content more relevant and realistic to a young person's life, you've done a great job.
I'm going to keep pushing and nudging a little bit for some voices. I know there's some of you out there that are kind of thinking, sitting a little bit like, well, I do know kind of some things, but maybe not quite ready to share, but feel free. Let's hear from you.
Well, I'll chime in.
Okay.
Really unique classroom setting. I teach young adults with disabilities. So all my students are outside of high school, but they have some fairly significant disabilities. So within our program, we do work-based learning where we schedule volunteer times and other things within the community for them to experience some of those things firsthand, because they learn better firsthand. But I also have up on my marker board in my classroom the word why, because like 2-year-olds, I get why all the time. Why do I have to do this? Why? And so I always turn that question around. Why? Why do you think we're doing this? Mm-hmm. And usually, you know, after a little while and some prompting, they're really quick to answer that question for me. And so that's having them sort of identify, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why does this matter? And take a little bit more ownership over it.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Really like that. That self-reflection piece, building on that. I think there was another voice at the same time. 2 people.
Yeah, I was just focusing a little bit. I'm a grad student going to school for speech therapy.
Excellent.
So I'm more on the side of the team itself. And so I was thinking about this question more as, what can we as the medical team provide as far as training and skills? So things like functional communication is a really big part of what we do. For someone who may lack the traditional language or vocabulary stretch, however you want to call it, how can we focus a lot of the care that we provide into creating functional language? Like, what are they focusing on? What within this career goal? Are they going to school to be an engineer? Cool. Like we will work on language dedicated to working with engineering. So I think it's just something that we can keep in mind as far as the care team goes, as far like training and teaching and working with these individuals to provide those tools to them.
Nice. I really like that concept, because it sounds like you're looking at an industry perhaps, or you know, a career field, a profession, and really identifying some of the key terms or vocabulary for that particular area. And we all know sometimes that I joke with my husband, he's in the pharmaceutical industry, and they have their own language when they start throwing around the different acronyms that they all know what that means. But the average person maybe coming in off the street might not realize that, or a new career person coming in. It takes a while to learn the acronyms that are floating around within an industry. So thank you. That was Grace, right?
Yep, that was me.
Okay, great. That's I really like what you were saying in terms of the functional communication pieces. I want to speak a little bit to career assessment highlights. No one says that those can just be simple informational activities that can gather assessment information, in a sense, for a student. Even so much as having students line up in the middle of a classroom and throwing out some questions. Who likes working outside? Step to the right. You know, who would like variety? Step to the left. You know, some of those different things to help students start understanding all the different aspects that can happen on the job. So it doesn't have to be a paper pencil assessment or a click and go through an assessment, but it can be just some simple things happening in the classroom that help students assess their interest areas and how those might match up to the different options that are out there for them. Even so much as an activity that was done in class. How'd that go for you? Was it something that came naturally, or did you have to work at it? Because we know that students have natural talents. And so to help them identify those natural talents, or the talents that might be needed for a job that doesn't come naturally for them, that they might have to work on. That also is a type of an assessment for a student. One last chance. Anything else?
Kelly had a cool comment in the classroom. Would you rather, is a fan favorite. And that's a fun way, I think, to approach. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to say anything or not.
Yeah, no, again, my students are a little bit different than the traditional high school students. So we often do would you rather. And of course, I throw in silly ones like, would you rather, I don't know, eat spicy Cheetos or, something like that. But then we will throw in some of those regular ones that, really do speak to some of that career planning and thoughtfulness about your skills and your abilities.
Love that. That's super simple. I used to do when I was talking to 8th graders about their 9th grade selection at the high school with the pathways, thumbs up, thumbs down, turn around. How do you feel about milking a cow? How do you feel about designing your bedroom? How do you feel about building a deck on the back of your house? Took 30 seconds, but it was just a fun way, to your point, Liz, to generate some good conversation.
So one piece that wasn't really brought up or talked about was the parent consultation and endorsement. And I know sometimes this can be interpreted as the EDP must have a signature from a parent. And that's still kind of in that gray area, even within the Michigan Career Development Model and the outline there. What does that actually mean, parent consultation or endorsement? Something that they view, something that a student has taken home to them, conversation. So that's sort of that gray area. I'm wondering what others might think about that particular element and how you might have approached that before. Or not.
As part of our transition planning, we do a parent transition survey, and some of the questions on the transition survey are related to future career employment and interests. So we don't really do anything separate, but that sort of rolled right into that transition survey and the IEP team.
So, yep. For us here at KRESA, we're working, because we use the Xello system and it has a family portal option, we're working to help elevate that particular feature for our districts to be able to bring in that family piece to allow whoever it is at home that helps guide that child, the ability to see the information that they're searching and saving within their Xello system, to be able to have maybe a dinner time or a mealtime conversation with that student, and also then to be able to maybe pull those reports in regards to, how many times a family person has, viewed information through the family portal. We're still in our infancy with that particular piece, but something that we're working towards. Have Joan go to the next slide. So I've mentioned Xello a few different times, and wanted to just share with you how we're seeing it meet the Michigan Career Development Model, especially the update piece in regards to the K-12 progression. We do have the system in some of our elementary schools. Some are working to really embed it within their classrooms. Others are just at kind of the pilot stage, and we're okay with that. We're okay with wherever a school is at in regards to getting things started, especially in the realm of career awareness and exploration, and how it can evolve over time from when a student hits kindergarten until the time in which they graduate. So as you can see from these screenshots, the Xello system, what students can utilize it for, and the information that they can save, within it, the different assessments that they can take, the careers that they can explore. It evolves with them over time, and they're able to do some personalization. So the banner at the top can be something that might change over time as a student goes through different activities or has different experiences. They can certainly post a picture. We know we have our kids on their social media sites, and they're updating that information all the time. So this one is similar in terms of social media, but it's more on their professional side. So this is what a student can do to start building their professional self. And so in putting their different pictures, updating that different information, reviewing, retaking the assessments, saving different information, and saving, documenting the different highlights, things that they have accrued over the years from kindergarten up to 12th grade, so that they have this compilation of information they can pull from when they need to do those ever important applications, whether it's for a job, a scholarship, post-secondary institution, putting a resume together. So the information can be saved there, like I said, in the system that's a progression for that. Xello also has, within the next slide, we can see Xello has also taken time to create lessons. So they have a series of embedded lessons. And I don't mean for this to sound like a Xello commercial. It's just more to talk a little bit about the system, because that's what we use in the county. That's what we are promoting for use in regards to being in compliance with the Michigan Department of Education EDP. So anytime a student really is on the Xello system, they are essentially meeting the requirements. So one way they could do this is through these lessons. So there are lessons, about 4 lessons each grade level that Xello has. And they also have taken time to align these lessons to the Michigan Career Development Model. So because there's so many schools that utilize the system, Xello did that next step for a lot of the Michigan schools in terms of these lessons and the Michigan Career Development Model. The EDP essential elements are part of those. What we did for Kalamazoo County Schools, and it'll show up on the next slide, is a number of our school systems really kind of were looking for more of a grid format. So not all of our schools were able to really fit in the lessons or have the time to, within their content areas or in the classrooms, to have students do the lessons. They're there, and students can easily access them, but not always was there the time. So we took a look at the features of Xello and looked at how the features fit and align to the Michigan Department of Education EDP guidelines documents, those documents that I showed earlier in the slide presentation. And so what this chart shows, and it's a 2-pager, we'll kind of go through this page a little bit more in depth first, and then you can see what the second page looks like. But within this, the gray bar, the light gray bar along the page, going down the page, begin EDP documentation, personal information, career goals. Each one of those light gray bars is the essential element of the EDP guidelines document. So these are the essential elements. And then we have the grades 6 through 12, and we looked at, okay, this feature, where would this part be within the Xello features? So just by their account logins, that's initial documentation for beginning the EDP. And then we looked at what grade level typically should that happen. And so the lighter arrow is where some of our schools might want to have it started in 6th grade, because the system is available to them at 6th grade, and students are looking at it, they're finding it on their network sign-ins, and so they might be doing some things. But really it should, the legislation says it should begin in 7th grade and must be in place by 8th grade. And so That's where the darker chevron arrow shows that that's kind of where we see it as sort of where the grade level requirement is in terms of getting to that EDP essential element and having that completed. And so it's something that can be done over time, repeated each year in terms of doing that review, that reflection, that processing. And so you'll see personal information, the Xello About Me dashboard. That's where students would accomplish, in a sense, that particular element. And we feel that 8th grade is a great time for that to happen. That's where they can do some of that personalization that we talked about. They certainly can do updates 9 through 12, but certainly should start that in 8th grade. And then the career goals. So through the Explore Options section of Xello is where students can start saving those career goals. And those aren't set in stone either. Those are things that can change as well over time. And so we looked at that should be something that might happen in 8th grade, maybe again in 9th grade, as there's been some developmental changes between middle school and initially high school, and then review again in 11th grade, perhaps. So then awareness of projected job openings. That's another essential element. And you can see again where we've aligned it to the Xello features, as well as where we feel that it should happen at what grade level. Certainly can happen at each grade level, but kind of the have to in terms of making sure it's touched upon, let's say. We also did some hyperlinks within this grid to be able to share and show the links that our instructional staff and our school counselors can easily go to find additional information. So on page 2 of this standards guide, again, this grid, because there's, the continuation of the elements. So again, the gray bar is the different essential elements, and then the clear sections are where we see it aligning to the Xello features, and then the chevron arrows, whether they're light or dark in terms of the different grade levels that we feel that they fit in regards to helping a student along their journey of doing some career planning, looking at the different options that are available to them, and working towards their future goals and plans. So then this year, this was last year's work, the completion guide. And so this year we kind of looked at that like, not very friendly perhaps as a handout for students or their families. This is more the document that can be worked with from the school counselor or the instructional coach, the teacher, in regards to working with the system and the students in the classroom. But what about an easy overview, a friendlier guide? And so this year we're rolling out this document, which just kind of puts it in a little bit friendlier language and sort of just shows some of the higher level key points, the key touch areas that students should have opportunity for, or should be guided to do in the different grade levels. And we've also linked it to different resources where we can, in order to give it that user-friendly capabilities. For example, under the 7th grade, an introduction of the talent portfolio / EDP process. That's a link to a slide deck that can be used in a classroom setting with an instructor delivering the information, or a school counselor and an instructor teaming, or it could be something that a student could view on their own and learn about the different information in regards to what is a talent portfolio EDP process. And then throughout also there's some embedded links for some of the student-facing videos that Xello has created to, again, help students understand the system and ways to work on it. So again, try to do a friendlier document for students.
So, hi everyone. I again am Joan Hawkshurst, one of the 6 career development consultants here in Kalamazoo RESA's Career Awareness and Exploration team. Excited to be with you all. And this next few minutes is a test of my ability to multitask, right? So I've been sort of the person behind the scenes, but I'm going to try to talk and click at the same time. So wish me luck. My job is to talk a little bit about how an EDP's meaning can be tied up in this sort of cycle of reflection, right? So having an educational development plan is a great thing. It's an even greater thing if a student revisits that plan. And the triangle that you see on the left side of the screen that moves from actual doing the planning, which as Jocelyn pointed out, is really going to impact a student's well-being, to actually going out into the workplace or the classroom or the nonprofit volunteer opportunity, having an experience like testing out some of that plan and then taking the time to reflect on it can really deepen a student's willingness then to go back and reassess the plan, to take another look at that EDP. And that's why, as Liz just pointed out, this really is a process that's going to last for students from 6th grade all the way through till when they leave after graduation. And the more that we can get students to reevaluate, to go back, to go through this cycle of working on their EDP, setting themselves some goals, going out and testing them, testing their theories, having some experiences, learning from employers and mentors and family members, starting to get a sense of, wow, that worked, that didn't work, and then doing some serious reflection on, wow, what did I learn about myself from that? What are some of those skills that I really felt were valuable in that situation? Is one of the most critical ways that this EDP can come to life and can be a valuable component of a student's path through secondary school. So what you see on the right side of this slide is a beautiful representation of a hypothetical student named Jamila, of what she will have at her fingertips if she uses Xello repeatedly and effectively. In the middle, there's sort of the list of elements of Xello that will contribute to Jamila's structured reflection process. She'll do the career matchmaker. She'll learn about her personality styles. She'll learn about her learning styles. Once she gets to 9th grade, she'll have the opportunity to look to work on Skills Lab. She'll start thinking about what comes after high school. There's a function that allows her to take some of these elements of her educational development plan and translate them into a resume, on and on and on. Especially, we should highlight the storyboard as one of the places where Jamila and all of our students are able to sort of collect and curate the experiences that they're having. And so thinking about the EDP as a way to do this structured reflection process, if students really grab onto their Xello and they really do take the time to put their experiences into the timeline and reflect on some of the likes and dislikes and positives and negatives that they have experienced in every time they go outside of the classroom and test out their plan, the more valuable and meaningful it will be to them as they move through. This is just another way to look at some of what I just said. What you see here is a little bit of a student's profile in Xello. And as you can see, as I mentioned, students have a chance to learn about their own personality style. What are the kinds of the ways that they find meaning and activate their skills and talents? How do they best learn? What are some of the skills that they reflect on themselves as being valuable and also things that they do well? The bottom part here is a picture of the experiences timeline, which is a way that students can kind of track the different volunteer and internship, externship, part-time jobs, summer jobs, things that they're doing, again, to test out their plan as they work their way through it and get to a more clear awareness of what might be a good next step for them after high school. I think we've mentioned that we really do, while there are places in the EDP completion guide where there's a black chevron, we really do encourage students to reflect annually, right? To go back and look at that matchmaker assessment and see if maybe some of their answers have changed. Again, as they've tested their experiences, as they've reflected on what they've done, they may come back and discover that, wow, I really thought I liked to work with kids, but then I went and did it for a summer in camp. And I realized that, wow, it's just not something that I'm so excited to do. And so I need to go back and answer those questions differently upon reflection after having had experiences. That really is the sort of the heart of what structured reflection is and can do for students. Another element that we've alluded to, but not really explained in detail in terms of Xello's features, is the goals and plans section. And Jocelyn did a fabulous job of talking about how planning can enable students to have a better, greater sense of well-being. And you all gave perfect examples of confidence and choosing the right classes and the things that students are more capable of doing if they are creating plans for themselves. And what Xello offers is a really powerful and very much enhanced over its predecessors goals and plans section. What you can see here is that students have the opportunity to create as many plans for their future as they want to. One of the fun aspects of this platform is that they can consider how, in this slide, for example, the student, their idea might be to become a firefighter, and then they can choose which of the 9 pathways to becoming a firefighter would embark them upon after high school. But they don't have to just choose that. They could look at a plan to become a firefighter alongside a plan to become a college professor, and then start to understand sort of the different elements of skills they might need to develop, of interests that might align or not with those different paths of the education and training that they'll need to get to those places. They can definitely see sort of salary levels and the length of time it will take them. And so they start to use Xello to really translate from their EDP, which is going to get them through high school, and start thinking about their plans for post-high school graduation. One of the cool things that's highlighted in the middle of your screen is that not sure button. And there are lots of young people we know who may be creating EDPs, but maybe aren't really getting closer to knowing what they want to do. Maybe they don't, maybe they're equally attracted to the idea of doing an apprenticeship or taking a gap year. And so each of those 9 pathway boxes in step 2 gives them an opportunity to click and learn more about what that pathway means and how it might be a choice that's interesting to them or not. So if a student uses this goals and plans feature as part of their reflection process, they will over time zero in on at least some options that are going to make sense for them to consider after graduation. Again, here on the left side of this screen is an example of a student's goals and plans. This student's path, that is one of their plans, is to become a mechanic. When they choose the education training path that aligns with mechanic, Xello actually automatically generates the beginning of a to-do list with boxes they can click as they do some of the tasks that it will require for them to get ready to embark on this plan. It also gives them options of specific careers that can come from at the end of the path of becoming certified as a mechanic. And so in this case, you can see perhaps that an aircraft mechanic with a salary range is going to show up as what might come at that step in the pathway after they complete the tech training. So imagine what it might be like for a student to create several of these plans, right? Not necessarily committing to them, not necessarily thinking that one step along the path is enough for them, but thinking that maybe over time they might be interested in exploring a variety of things. This is going to give them some real helpful tips on what to do and what the end result will be of a variety of pathways. We wanted to just, for the educators on the call, give you a sense of the power too of the tools that are included in the Xello suite. And in this case, as we think about goals and planning, one of the things that a teacher or a counselor can do is actually pull up their students and run a report to see how many of them have actually created a plan in Xello versus how many of them have not gotten to that point yet. And that's a way to, alongside the EDP that they're developing by completing elements of Xello, also kind of zero in a little bit more closely on the goals and plans that each student might be creating in Xello as part of a comprehensive EDP. I think the next slide is going to just talk a little bit more in detail about goals and plans. The deck that we have shared with you has live links to video that is student-focused opportunity to dig in a little bit to the goals and plans. The educator resources down at the bottom give some lesson plans. I do want to reiterate that there are folks who have mentioned to us that that the goals and planning piece in Career Cruising, which was Xello's predecessor, were not so robust, and we are really excited about this newest iteration of this element of Xello. So if you haven't had a chance yet to go in and click around and get to know the variety of options and the depth with which that to-do list is created to help walk a student through some of the next steps that they need to take, we would love for you to spend a little time with that. And if that's something that you would like to do with one of KRESA's career development consultants, that's what we're here for. So in this next slide, this is just looping back around. You know, we talked a little bit earlier about the importance of planning and the importance of being aware of options and aware of the power of starting to think about a plan. And we just wanted to make the point that in addition to that, giving students options to better understand their interests and their skills, to think about their values, to think about all of the questions that Xello and our other career development efforts will offer to them, will really empower students to be more prepared for careers in the future, for all of the reasons that we've listed here in bullet points. The interests that students are going to explore and define through their EDP in Xello may show them some great matches to future jobs. The personality assessments may help them decide where they might fit or where they might not. I love Liz's example of, do you want to work outside? Step to the left. Do you want to work in an office? Step to the right. There are lots of ways that becoming more aware of who each of our students is as an individual is going to help them proceed along the path. So it's really a beautiful quote summarizing what we're talking about here. Everyone has their own talents. It's up to the individual to see what you can actually do. We believe that creating an EDP using Xello as the platform is one way for each individual student to really start to see how their talents and their abilities are going to lead them to a successful future.
All right, so we are gonna move on to talk a little bit more specifically about the talent portfolio section. We debate about this on our team a little bit sometimes about how do EDPs and talent portfolios connect and where are they related? And I think I'm coming to kind of an understanding that I feel like they are complementary, integrated pieces of the same process. So just like before, we want to start with what does MDE say? What does the Michigan Department of Education say about talent portfolios? And what they say is that a talent portfolio shall be developed and revised throughout the implementation of a pupil's educational development plan. A talent portfolio shall include, but is not limited to, a record of the pupil's experiences, proficiencies, certifications, or accomplishments that demonstrate talents or marketable skills. That's very descriptive, but I also feel like it's even a little more dense than the last MDE definition. So let's think a little bit more specifically about how this might actually relate to our students. The good news for MDE is they also developed this graphic, which I feel like is a little more helpful in terms of thinking about the purpose of a talent portfolio. What is it we're actually driving at? What is it we would hope a student would get from the process of making a talent portfolio? And they kind of identify three major areas. The first is documenting career-ready practices. So these might be 21st century skills or employability skills. We're all kind of calling this this collection of things a different thing. But what it gets down to are those skills we know, and we know that employers have told us students need to be successful in the workforce. Things like time management, things like adaptability, things like collaboration. So not only would we hope that a student through EDP experiences might learn about those areas, but the talent portfolio is where they actually document that they've done things related to collaboration or related to time management, that maybe they've got a presentation or a video created by a team that they were part of at school that they can then use to talk about their collaboration skills. So this portfolio becomes evidence of them building those career-ready practices. Another area is leadership experience. So we know our students have opportunities in school to be in leadership positions. And I can think of through with my own children, we're not always great about helping them quantify what did that experience teach you? What did you learn from that experience? How could you connect that to maybe a career goal that you might have down the road? But this portfolio allows them to kind of keep track of all those things that they do along the way that they might not feel are so important. We've heard from some of our local educators that students sometimes struggle to talk about what they've done, to even maybe see the value in what they've done. And that this portfolio process can be a way to help a student see all the valuable experiences and all the strengths that they could bring to a future career. And then the last area are those job interview examples. And I'm going to guess we can all relate to this one, that this is a place where students could document, again, a problem they solved, a time they worked through a challenge, all those kinds of questions we know that we all get asked in job interview experiences. And if we're lucky, we've prepared for. But this process can hopefully help a student walk out the door of high school already thinking about how to talk about their skills in an interview in a way that will help them get the jobs that they want. And again, knowing that's feedback that we get, that's a skill that students could really use help and support with. I think the talent portfolio is a perfect way to build opportunities into practice that. So, in other words, we're going to revamp the MDE description. We sort of feel like, Joan already used the word curated, which I think is a perfect word for this, in that it's a collection, but we want it to be a meaningful collection, one that a student has thought about what each piece brings to the larger picture. A curated collection of evidence of what a student has done during their education to date that can be used to create college and job applications, resumes, LinkedIn profiles, etc. So I often talk about remembering back my world in the 90s of like trying to remember all the things that I'd done in high school and college, and then trying to find the address and the phone number for every place I'd work. And I think what's amazing about this generation is that we've got a tool here that can really help streamline and make that easier. And hopefully, again, just like before, the outcome of that is confidence, that a student feels ready to tackle a scholarship application or an internship application because they can see that they've already got this information curated in one place. So in the context of our Kalamazoo County example, this information can be housed in two specific places in Xello. In the timeline, where a student could be logging specific experiences, I think Joan mentioned that a little bit. We're really working even at the middle school level to help students start using the timeline to put things like My Career Quest in as an event in their timeline. And the cool thing is whenever a student does that, it asks them to reflect as a part of that process. So it's going to ask them to think about, what did you learn? What did you find challenging? What did you like? And so each time they're entering something, that reflection kind of automatically starts to happen, which I think kind of adds a little bit more meaning to any individual event that you might be taking students on. So I kind of already jumped the gun on this, but you can sort of see different features that are part of this portfolio within Xello. In addition to the experiences or timeline section, which is really where individual events and activities can go in with dates that again start to become the underpinnings of a resume. The storyboard is kind of that open-ended place, catch-all place where students could put a video, a picture, a link to a website that maybe they've created, or a link to a website of an organization that they've worked with or that they want to work with. It's kind of a Google Drive for careers a little bit in terms of helping them have one focused place for things that relate to their educational development plan. Yeah, I think I talked a lot, so we can go ahead. Oh, and actually one more piece, because this may relate to some of you in your roles as educators. A really cool thing about Xello and kind of working towards wider use and more systematic use across our county is that it's a great place for students to have all this information housed, and it's a great place as an educator to know that I can learn more about my students for things like recommendation letters. And Bo, I'm going to mention you. We were out at Parchment doing a training a week or two ago, and we know that lots of educators are asked to write recommendation letters, and that's a challenging thing when you have 120 students. The information that students are cataloging and curating in Xello can really be a tool in terms of creating a customized, specific, useful recommendation letter for a student, if that's part of your role. So again, in summary, the experiences or timeline section and the storyboard are the places in Xello that most specifically we think relate to that talent portfolio. I also think, just to mention some other feedback we've received from our county educators, is that students sort of feel like sometimes once they've been in Xello, once they've done a few things, that they've done it. And then when another opportunity comes around to do something engaging in Xello, and their response is sort of like, well, I've already done this. I've already been in Xello. I've already saved my careers. And I think we really see so much opportunity in these portfolio areas of Xello to always have room for growth, right? Even now, any one of us could go in and enter things from the last 6 months of work that would be updates to our Xello accounts. And so helping students see that this is like, it's never done. How can your storyboard or your timeline experiences be done when you're continually having new experiences and learning new things about yourself? It's a matter of kind of coming back to it, doing that reflection piece that Joan so eloquently described, which we think is the way that EDP becomes meaningful, and then curating these artifacts that demonstrate what is coming out of those experiences and opportunities they're having in school and outside of school. One more piece just to mention when it comes to kind of collecting this data, these experiences and these opportunities that students have. We know that the college admissions world is changing kind of as we speak right now, that as a result of the pandemic and just also some growing awareness of structural inequities in our college admission system. A lot of schools are moving away from using standardized testing. A lot of them have gone to test optional. Some of them aren't accepting them at all anymore. And that has left a bit of an open space in the information gathering that we are hypothesizing it can be filled by really well cataloged involvement that a student can use their Xello account on what they've saved there to illustrate on a college application. So when a student's applying to a selective school and they can really demonstrate high quality involvement in these different experiences, and they've got materials to demonstrate or to back it up, does that take their college application to another level? It's going to depend on the school. But we've got a quote here from University of Michigan talking about their awareness of the value and importance of those life experiences of the school or community or religious activities, kind of showing that extra piece of the puzzle when they're looking at students. So we think Xello can support that and help students meet that expectation without the added stress of feeling like there's a whole new level of a new ask upon them. They're already cataloging this stuff anyway.
So we kind of talked about it at the beginning. I had to check quick to see if I'd muted myself, and I didn't. So so one of my things that I tend to do with these Zooms, but we talked about at the beginning, you know, making this meaningful, making the EDP meaningful, to not be that drudgery or that have to document or documentation piece. And as both Jocelyn and Joan have pointed out in regards to the value of it, not only for the collection and a curation of those items, but also to building that confidence piece for students in terms of having that plan going forward and having those pieces behind them going forward to show what they've done and what they've accomplished, and being able to explore any new thing that they come across. Perhaps they're on a family trip and notice a particular occupation that someone is working at or doing, and you know, gosh, I'd like to know more about that. So whether from KRESA jumping onto Xello, or there's certainly some other different sites too that students might have access to, but looking into those occupations and trying them on in regards to what I know now about myself and how my interests might fit and what I might like about that work environment. I remember the first time I went on a cruise, it was like, wow, people do this for a living, you know? And I didn't know you could do that for a living. So just different things along those lines in terms of always creating those awarenesses for kids and knowing that there's a system that they can go to explore that information and dive deeper into that particular occupation and save it if they'd like to. And then maybe by the next year they're over that and realize, no, that's not what I want to do. So sure, they can unsave it. It's perfectly fine because they're in that growing and changing stages. So in terms of making it meaningful, we asked our students after a particular presentation that we did with in terms of EDPs. It was a virtual workshop, if you will, where we had a large number of students in the early high school years, 9th and 10th graders, logging on and going through an EDP process using their Xello accounts. And so at the end, we asked, what do you think? What are your next steps? Is this meaningful? And so here, in front of us are just 4, but we had quite a number of comments we could have put here, but we felt these were some key ones that students reflected on and talked about in regards to how it's helping them see, you know, who they are as an individual and how they might fit into the world of work in terms of an initial first job. So yeah, after this workshop, I'm going to dive deeper into the 67 research tabs that are already open. Okay, so 67 different career fields that a student might have initially thought like, hey, that sounds interesting, and why not? So dive deeper and see which ones of those 67 might be a good fit. And really, how a personal interests heavily affect my career choices. I initially talked about the, Kelly mentioned the would you rather, and I talked about more the forced choice exercise. And years ago, in a career type class with instructors, I had them create a type of an assessment that they might use, and a person came up with the different smells of an environment. So do you want to work in a more of a shop environment that has a lot of heavy oil, motor oil smell, or in the health field? We know that there's certain smells associated with medical offices or hospital areas. How about a farm? There's certainly lots of smells that happen on a farm. And so those were some of the different ways this individual kind of came up with an assessment for people to go through and think about the work environment. So are they meaningful? This group of students thought definitely it brought meaning to them in regards to what they were able to learn about themselves and then explore and save for future decision making. So because we've talked a little bit about the system that we use, of course, the Xello system, we just wanted to make sure in this last couple of slides that we also just mention the Xello support site. So those of you that are on Xello within the county, and some of you outside the county might also have it from either your particular school district or your ISD. Yeah, to get to the Xello support site, it's just help.xello in your browser. Help.xello. They really kind of streamlined it for you. You don't have to remember this long URL or anything along those lines. So help.xello, and it gets you to their support tool site. You might have to do a little more searching once you're on the site, because they have continually filled it with information. But we have found it pretty handy to go to and search for different things and see what's new, and especially some of the student-facing videos that they're now starting to populate on their YouTube channel. It really just helps with some of those introduction pieces when you're working with students in the classroom. And then we also keep a collection of not only Xello support tools or handouts and things that we're creating, or different lessons pertaining to the site, but also just in general, career awareness and exploration resources available in our own Google Drive. That's a public drive, and you can either use this link here or scan the QR code. And when you do that, we'll receive a notification that you'd like access, and we're happy to give access so that you can look at the different resources that are in there, and they're meant for individuals to download, utilize, tweak, adapt, beg, borrow, and steal is the motto here to be able to use for your own benefits and working with students in their career journey. And so with that, I believe it's amazing to me, but we've kind of come to the end of our hour and a half with our presentation and our information. We hope that it's been useful, that you've found some nuggets of information and resources that you can take back with you. We're certainly available, any one of us, and our links here at the end to ask any questions or to continue to connect with us. We're available.